Welcome back to This Week. Time now to get the views of our media and political experts. Democratic State Senator Thelma Harper of Nashville and syndicated conservative talk show host Steve Gill. No snow, you made it in?
Exactly.
It was tough last week. Thank you and welcome. You heard the governor talking about this tough budget that you're going to have to deal with real soon. Laying off 1,300 workers, eliminating 500 jobs, non-filled jobs, and still going into the reserves. Is there really an option? I mean, the stimulus money is going away. There's going to have to be cuts and reductions.
You know, we've seen the private sector really having to face some serious cuts, unemployment rates in the 10% range. Nationally last week, 480,000 more people around the country showed up for their first visit to the unemployment office. So we've been seeing that pain felt in the private sector, and the folks that are paying the bills, the taxpayers, ought to see the same kind of cuts that are taking place with their money in the public sector. It's a shame, but it's a shame whether we're losing jobs in the private or the public sector, and that's why it's so important that we turn things around and start creating some jobs.
You folks are going to have to make those hard decisions.
Well, we will. Let me first say that the governor has shown that he cares about this state and he cares about the employees and all of the children of the state. And there are some tough decisions. I think one of the things that hurts us most is we live on sales tax. And when businesses close, that's the end of our funding. I think the one-time money has helped us along thus far, and it has moved us, I think, to a sense of a reliance that just wasn't there. It's sad to say that our state employees are going to be laid off because one of the things that hurt so desperately is the fact that they will not have health insurance.
Right.
And many times, many of these workers their families are solely dependent on their income. But I believe that in the long run, the things are going to spur back up again. But we don't know how long it's going to be that way.
You can dig deeper into the reserves if you want to eliminate some of the numbers of cuts, but then that's always dicey. Do you really want to dig too deep into those reserves?
Well, I think this governor has proven that he doesn't want to dig too deeply into reserves. But I think the young man's comment about looking at contracts and looking at privatization just doesn't always pay off. You know, people think that you're giving your problem to someone else. It's only for a short time because those problems come back. Eventually, if they decide they don't want to do it, they bring it back and lay it in the laps of the state, and we have to pick it up. And that's the same thing with education. You know, we've heard an awful lot about privatizing schools and on. And my question has been to them, when you get to a point that you cannot handle the situation, what do you do with our children or the institution they are? They said, we bring it back and give it to you. So we should try to work it in the first place.
I think part of the problem is, and it's not just a state problem, but at the federal level, we've seen such a dramatic expansion of the number of federal employees. Whatever jobs are being created in our society right now are being created at the federal government. And it's not just the number of jobs, it's the paychecks that federal employees are receiving. Now, again, this isn't the case at the state level, but at the U.S. Department of Transportation, in the last 2 years, we've seen the number of federal employees who make over $170,000 at the U.S. Department of Transportation alone go from one individual to 1,700 people today at the U.S. Department of Transportation making over $170,000 a year. That leaves a bad taste in taxpayers' money, in taxpayers' mouths, and it reflects down, I think, on the state as well.
Well, but are we getting better roads because of that? Are we getting better employees because of that? You know, I don't envy what they make. I envy the work that they do if they are not doing it. And sometimes we've seen that some people on payrolls, they are just not meeting out the services that we're paying for.
These cuts are going to be deep in some areas. You're concerned about the mental health and children's services.
Children's services. And we have a situation.
And everybody
now,
has a pet project.
Well, I'll tell you what, my pet project will always be senior citizens and children. But we're closing New Vision's Girls Center to send them back to Woodland Hills. And you saw the Federal Justice Report recently on what's happening at Woodland Hills. Those girls have just gotten to a point where they have built confidence. They are doing well. They're not staying as long. They're really productive citizens and ready to go back home. Now we're going to take them and put them in an environment where we say, well, it's just too bad. And we'll have an empty facility until we find someone who wants to come in and take it over.
This is what happens when we have to go this deep. Some of the good programs do get cut.
Although I will say that we're fortunate in Tennessee because there has been this sort of fiscal restraint and conservative approach to our dollars in the last 8 years with both Republicans and Democrats working together. Tennessee's looking at a budget shortfall. We'll face some difficult choices in the legislature. But when you look at what's happening in California, in Michigan, in New York, the state of California has a budget shortfall that's basically about the same as our entire budget. And they're looking at communities that may have to declare bankruptcy because they can't make ends meet. Tennessee's going to face some tough choices, but we're so far better and above what other states are facing.
We should never be compared with California.
A lot of people would probably agree with you.
If you find that you have a significant number of Californians who live here, those Michigan residents, they have moved to Tennessee. So I wouldn't compare us with
huge conference going on here in Nashville this week. The Tea Party Nation having its first national convention.
I was not invited.
Me either.
Neither was I, so it's a trifecta.
It's a grassroots organization. I mean, we all know we saw the grassroots organization this summer at the health care hearings. Splinter groups. This is kind of trying to unite them. There's been controversy. It's for profit. Some of the sponsors have bailed. Some of the congressmen, Congressman Marsha Blackburn has decided not to come because of the for-profit issue. Does this hurt the concern that the Tea Party Nation is trying to move forward?
I think those that are critical of the whole grassroots movement will use this as a weapon against it. But the bottom line is we just had a gathering of about 34 different local Tea Party organizations around the state meet last week. It didn't get the kind of fanfare. They weren't charging big fees for people to attend. This is a grassroots movement, and you're going to have people trying to grab hold of it, some people trying to profit from it. It's not going to really affect what the people are thinking, what the people are doing. And I think that some of the taint or some of the attacks or some of the good that comes out of this particular convention is really not going to have much to do of the political impact of the Tea Party
movement itself.
Well, it appears, just from listening, and I get my information through the media. Steve doesn't call and share information with me. But from what I hear, the internal squabbling is it's about money and who's making the race to the top. I mean, $540 for a ticket is a bit much when you go back and look at the original Boston Tea Party. That was not a cost associated with it other than your tea.
Of course, we got a populist president who just raised $3 million at a high-dollar event for the Democratic Party this week. So let's not just look at ticket prices.
No, but that was a political.
And this is
that was a political event, and that's what you do when you've got to run for office. You know, they don't give you advertising. Ask WJRN. They don't give you advertising.
And this organization is organizing, and this money is going to be used to help, as Sarah Palin is going to put her money into a PAC to help elect people that fit the views of this body. So I think it really is similar to what the president did.
So you all are doing the same thing the Supreme Court did. You're just opening up the well where you can just infuse money in people who don't agree with you.
$549 instead of $10,000 a plate. So I think it's a difference. That's what the Democrats
But based on what the Supreme Court said, I mean, corporate American unions are going to be able to buy them, their elected officials. That should not be.
As Samuel Alito said, that's not true. That's not what the opinion said.
Oh, yes,
we'll have to continue this. Appreciate your insights. Stay with us. This week continues in a moment.